Katie. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
It's an honor.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. So, we're with Chef Katie Button, entrepreneur, TV personality, philanthropist, chef. I mean, there's so many ways to describe you, right?
I've been busy. Yeah, it's good. We keep doing more and more and more. It's part of, I don't know, that entrepreneurial
Mindset,
dream.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
mindset, exactly.
you can't stop. You can't slow down, right?
No, no,
Oh my
definitely
gosh.
not.
That's amazing. I I've been a big fan for a while and unfortunately I haven't made my way down to Asheville, but certainly love a lot of the things that you've been doing that are out there in the media for sure, right? I started my first couple of jobs in your world, like many people do, right? Because
Yes.
it's certainly a way to get a fast job and get a lot of on the job training and and go for it. So I certainly have a huge appreciation for what you do. And as an entrepreneur as well. So thank you again for coming on here and telling your story to all of the budding entrepreneurs that will be listening to this, especially women entrepreneurs. Um, you've got this sort of like real life lessons in chemistry thing going on. Like you're like the real Brie Larson here, right? You went to Cornell, you studied engineering, chemical engineering, biomolecular engineering, but here you are today, an entrepreneur in the food industry. Uh, Tell us a little bit about that
I
journey.
know that is a funny story.
Yeah.
An interesting non-traditional path, but
Mm.
basically, I mean, it goes a little bit like this. I was good at math and science in school,
Okay.
and I think I was like, you're graduating high school, thinking about what to do, and you're trying to
Right.
do the thing that is the professional degree that's going to set you up for the career and success that everybody says that you're supposed to have.
Supposed
And
to have. Yep.
my mother, my food background, my mother is an incredible chef.
Okay.
She ran a catering business out of my home growing up. So I
Oh,
was like
cool.
constantly around food and cooking and
Sure.
loved it. I just when I first started off, I was like trying to pursue this idea of what success and a career of success
It's
was.
supposed to look like. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And I started in chemical engineering at Cornell mainly because somebody told me that was the hardest major. I really had no idea what I wanted to do, or
Well,
even what a chemical engineer did for that matter.
yeah. I Where I went to college, they called it Chegg. Is that like a universal term? Um,
Chemi. Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yes, it's a little
Chemi.
different.
Yeah,
Hmm.
they called it Chegg where I went to school, but yeah, exactly. Not exactly an easy major to just walk into, even if you're
And
good at math.
the thing is I struggled through it. I got through
Yeah.
it. I just wasn't enjoying the coursework
Sure.
and really didn't know what I wanted to do. And when it came time to getting a job, if you don't know and you're not passionate and you don't know what you're doing, you don't interview well. So
Right.
then I
Sure.
was on this path of like continuing education because I figured if I get super educated, someone will have to hire me.
Have
So
to hire you based on your credentials alone, right?
so I got a master's degree in biomedical engineering, but I did it in Paris
Right, in France, right? Yeah.
and I
Yep.
cooked the entire time.
Ah.
I was like inspired by French
Mhm.
markets and the cookbooks. I taught myself how to make puff pastry on the floor of my apartment because I didn't have enough counter space. And like food and cooking was my entire, like the thing that was getting me through
Right.
the work and the studying that I was kind of trudging myself through because I
Was
thought that was the career.
was this your first time, like, abroad, out of the country, and all of
Yes.
that
Yeah.
mixed in as well? Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it was an incredible experience. And I kept going. I almost started a PhD program in
Wow.
Washington, D.C. at the National Institutes of Health.
Okay,
And
NIH,
it
yep.
was a couple of weeks before it started where I had this moment of like, what are you doing? You,
Well, and there's not a lot of I know there's chemical engineering and there's a lot you can do, but at the end of the day, you're kind of unilaterally putting yourself into a engineering career path, right?
Right.
You
Well, and
yeah.
I had moved even further into biology. I was starting a
Okay.
PhD in neuroscience. It was
Okay, so
like,
you were
anyway, it was a
yeah,
little bit different than engineering, but still, I just, it was this moment of like, what are you doing? Why are you pushing yourself through something and you're miserable? And
right.
I was
Sure.
unhappy. And so I dropped out for the first time
Sure in your life.
from
Yeah.
something. And then I started immediately looking in restaurant jobs because, as you said, that's many people's first job. I
You can get
didn't
hired. Yeah.
quite know that at that moment I knew I loved cooking. I knew
Mm.
that I wished that I had gone to culinary school. All of this was kind of like coming up for me, but really it was when I got my first job, and the only restaurant in DC that would hire me with this like PhD dropout resume, because it was very clear I had no restaurant experience, was one of José Andrés's restaurants.
Yes.
And it was fate, honestly. Like the GM at the time, Jimmy Pomerol, was amazing. He handed me a quiz when I walked in with my resume, and the quiz was all about food knowledge.
Oh, wow.
And I aced this
well, you had
quiz,
all the self-taught.
loved it.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like oozing passion and love of food. And so he could see beyond my you know, failed degree experience, and saw the passion and decided.
Well, I wouldn't call it failed. Let's be. I think you're
right.
being
No. Yes, no. It was good. It all led to where I am today, and it's all been very important in a success story for sure.
So you met Chef Andrés very early on in your culinary career then.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Wow. My very first job was working for a caterer, family caterer. So we have that in common. I was dishwashing and food prepping and taking out trash and doing deliveries. And my mom used to have to drop me off because I was 15. I didn't have a driver's license.
Oh my gosh. I love that.
But, you know, taught me a lot about work ethic. Let me tell you.
Absolutely.
It really did. So now, you know, I'm going to fast forward quite a bit, Katie, if that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, you're a full-born entrepreneur at this point, and you're in a space that is very challenging for anyone. I mean, you know, the restaurant space is extraordinarily challenging, right? It's constant shifting of economic conditions and climates, and so much is happening here. So as an entrepreneur, in the restaurant space versus in any other space, tell me a little bit about, you know, how that experience has been for you, because I feel like it's doubly hard, right? It's one thing to be in the restaurant business; it's another thing to be an entrepreneur in the restaurant business, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, you know, I've learned a lot over the years. And when we opened the first restaurant, Cúrate, our flagship restaurant,
Right.
the ambition was just to open one restaurant. I mean, in the beginning, that's all it starts out as. It's like one Spanish tapas restaurant. And then quickly after that, you start to get excited and inspired about other things. And we have throughout the years, like opened another restaurant, we've closed it, had that learning. I feel like your greatest learnings come actually from closing something more than the like success that we've seen with our first. I mean, it's both. It's the comparison of those two things. But really, I think the biggest learning as an entrepreneur came in the pandemic. Like I don't think we wouldn't be where we are today or have the ambitions that we have today if we hadn't gone through that. And there were a couple of things, you know, that were immediately apparent. One was that we were at a disadvantage in the fact that the only way that we were receiving revenue required people to be in our restaurant.
In a building. Yeah, sure. Which was impossible. Yeah.
Right. In person. And the other thing it taught us is that restaurants have this unique ability to create trust and loyalty with customers in a way that other businesses
other industries don't. Yeah, sure.
Because people come in because of the in-person thing.
Communal, right?
Yeah. Yes. And because you have their undivided attention for an hour and a half to 2 hours as they share their life's moments with their friends and family and like create these incredible core memories and get to try new bites of food together and remember that octopus,
all of
that
the
bite of
sensory
octopus.
sort of interaction. Yeah.
Yes. And so we realize that they fall in love in those experiences when you deliver the quality, when we can deliver the quality of like food and service and hospitality that we strive for. And it's wonderful because then they want to continue to experience that from no matter where they are. Right. So it has inspired us to create new businesses moving into how can we bring what we do outside of the four walls of our restaurants into people's homes, travel with them, you know, just grow on this experience that we're trying to create.
I was going to ask you explicitly about the work you're doing with at home and your wine club and your trips. And these are very sort of non-traditional experiences, right? That you're building here and kind of really enhancing your customers' overall sort of experience with you. But that, again, is something I'm sure you didn't kind of just arrive to lightly or just say, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I have a pretty successful business. And like you said, you've had to close and expand, but then to say, I'm going to diversify even more. And like you say, extend the continuum of folks' experiences to home, to trips, to etc. Tell us a little bit about that process, Katie, that kind of brought you there.
Absolutely. I mean, I think part of it is it's been our goal to create this kind of immersive experience for people when they're in our restaurants. And when they come in and sit down, we have the full capability to do that. However, we're limited by the fact that they're in a restaurant
for a limited amount of time. Yeah.
Right. And in Asheville, North Carolina. And so we realized that to continue to give people those experiences, we wanted to pick them up and actually take them on trips to Spain to discover the restaurants and the food and the culture and the vineyards that originally inspired us to even open the restaurant. And those, I think being able to immerse people in that real experience has been so fun. And just like, I don't know, it's a special connection that you get to make. And now we're looking more towards home and how we can get people and take some of these producers and things like that we've fallen in love with in Spain and give access to them to the things that we love in their home, so that they can
people don't have to travel to Spain. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. Or they can't for whatever reason. Yes. As a woman in all of this, Katie, as you know, the whole point of our platform is to really kind of put that bright light on women entrepreneurs. And you are in a space where, there's a lot of male dominance. And I'm sure, with Chef Andrés and others, you've had amazing ally. But can you talk a little bit, Katie, about, your experiences as a female entrepreneur, especially in a space that there's a kind of an overwhelming, amount of men that are, when you look at your big celebrity chefs, or not even just celebrity chefs, just in general, right? It's a fairly male dominated space.
Absolutely. I mean, I think in the beginning, it was particularly hard. I felt just very, I don't know, separate and a little bit, I don't know, not able to integrate with that higher level of community. It can still feel that way. I mean, I think as people, it's only natural for us to feel comfortable connecting with people who are similar to us and have similar upbringings, life experiences and things. We do have to push ourselves outside of that for the greater world, and to create connections and be able to lift up others, which is really important. And it's taken a lot of confidence building to kind of interject and to feel comfortable and own even the term chef. Like for a while, it's just a hard, I don't know. It's like, exactly. Like, oh, am I really at that level? Like, but over the years, I think, and age helps and growth and time, just starting to get comfortable with who you are.
Age. Yeah.
It's amazing. I love getting older, so actually.
It's true. There's a certain amount of clarity and, like you say, acceptance and comfort that comes with age, right? And maybe at some point too, you kind of just stop caring about what other people think and those types of things.
Right? And you start to realize that everybody's life journey is different, and we only have one of these. So it's like, what is that life journey going to look like? And mine has shifted significantly in the past 4 years, because I went from, kind of active chef in the restaurants. I moved into a role of CEO for our businesses and had to try to learn how to be a CEO, which is not my training or background. So then realizing that if we wanted to reach the heights that we want to reach and our goals, that we needed a real CEO, like somebody who knows how to build and develop these businesses that we don't have the expertise in. We knew we needed to hire for that expertise. And so made that decision and brought on our CEO, another woman, Susan Applin, who's amazing, last fall. And we're super excited. And so now it's like everybody's falling into their strengths. And for me, that is, cooking demos and public engagements. And I'm working on a cookbook as well, which I'm really excited about.
Second, right?
Home cooking. Yes. But even more home cooking focused and kind of introducing people to Spanish ingredients in ways that are familiar and comfortable to them in dishes that they might know already. So I'm excited about that. And then, and also TV. And that is, you know, and then overseeing our brand.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And overseeing our brand and growth.
There's so many entrepreneurs that we speak to, Katie, that, you know, when you're early in your venture, like you were, and you have to do everything yourself because you either don't have the means or the resources, or maybe even sometimes, to your point, you haven't recognized where your gaps are or where your blind spots are. It sounds like for you, you know, you were able to say, okay, I'm transitioning from the chef to the CEO, but then as CEO, it was like, I have gaps and I have blind spots there, and I need to bring in other people who can help fill that. And like you say, now everyone is dropping into their roles and into their rhythms and cadences, and that's amazing. Did anybody help you through that, Katie? Was there, like, you know, a mentor or a community that really helped you to kind of recognize some of that?
Absolutely. I mean, the Asheville community is incredible. It's got this, like, I feel like entrepreneurial, creative lifeblood to it. Like, it's just full of people who want to create and bring their passion to life. And that's really exciting. And there's a program actually called Venture Asheville that I started doing that is focused on CEOs and owners and kind of having them map out the future and what they might need. And it puts together an advisory group for you to connect with. So I started doing that, and it was like, as soon as I started talking with people in other businesses who were part of my advisory board, who clearly part of bigger businesses who had, you know, grown further, I could see my limitations. It was just, it was like instant. And I knew, okay.
But that's great self-awareness too.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
And I knew, I was like, the first hire we have to make is at the top, because we have other hires that we need to make under that. It was very clear that we needed more support, but we need that person in first, so that we even know the job description, responsibilities of the other higher positions. Like, I feel like at a certain point, you just cap out in your understanding of, you know, as a founder, you're the creative spirit. We created all of it, the vision, the guide. But the execution, the goal setting, how it ties to performance and bonuses,
how do you measure it?
Motivates and KPIs and all of that, and what you should be looking at, and then have them actually mean something. Like, that takes a whole skill set. That
I'm sure when you were working in your first kitchen, you weren't thinking about KPIs. Right?
No, exactly. Definitely
when you're creating your dishes, your signature dishes, you're not thinking about performance metrics, right?
Definitely not. And honestly, I think about my engineering degree, and I'm so grateful for it, because I do think it was a big part of our success, of our first, of like kicking us off with Cúrate being such a success.
Well, you've got discipline, and you've got processes and things that you learn in engineering, right? You learn how to solve complex problems as an engineer. Right?
Exactly. And systems development, and how to scale things up consistently, and quality control, and all of those things, as well as being able to run an Excel spreadsheet and keep a tight food cost, you know, like understanding those things. It wasn't, you know, I think that really was an important foundation, actually. And then my love of food and creativity layered in there. But
you do so much, Katie, and you know, we've had other entrepreneurs on this show, and when I've asked them about things like balance, you know, one entrepreneur said to me, "There is no balance, right? At best, I blend, right? I have to blend things together because there is no balance." So, you know, you mentioned your transition now into TV personality. You've got the demands of that. You've got all the demands of your enterprise and your restaurants. What's your blend, Katie? Like, what does it look like for you? What's a typical day look like for you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, well, today, I mean, I can just tell you, well, a big thing of my blend is that I have really started emphasizing exercise and staying on top of it.
Great.
Like, I think that is super important. What I do is I go to my dad's apartment. He has a rowing machine, and I row in his apartment. And it's the only exercise I keep doing, because it's not just about the exercise. It's about those like few minutes that I get with him.
You get to hang out with him.
Yes. And like, just like, you know, and he like pumps me up and comments on my heart rate and stuff. And it's cool, you know? And then I go into my day, and today it started, you know, with our executive team meeting with my business partner and our CEO. And then it moved from that into a photo shoot because we're rolling out a pastry pop-up at La Bodega, our second concept, at the end of August. So we were doing a little shoot with my pastry chef, who's incredible down there. He was teaching me some of his techniques and all of that. And then after that, I came here. I'm working on the podcast. I've been doing emails. I like meetings. That is my normal day. And then when I can,
as much as there's probably any real normal to your day, right? Yeah.
And when I can, I try to set aside 2 to 3 days a week of solid recipe testing for this cookbook and development and creativity. So
sure. Yeah. And, you know, I really enjoyed the piece you just wrote about the bear. And so you're also finding time to write. Which is not easy either, right? Yeah. Do you enjoy writing? Is it something that comes natural to you?
I do. I need a good editor, let's be honest.
Yeah. but we're all better editors than authors, in my opinion.
But the passion I love to put onto paper, yes, in my normal stream of consciousness way, and then let an editor work their magic to make it cohesive. But yes.
Well, that was a great piece. I really appreciate that you wrote it, and I really enjoyed it, and I love to see you do more writing. So that's phenomenal. You know, you talked a little bit about where you began and your inspiration and your mom. And you just kind of talked a little bit about some of the new and exciting innovation that you're doing. But, you know, look, every entrepreneur at some point starts to feel the pressure, the grind. You mentioned the focus now on your exercise and your physical health. Any other techniques, Katie, that you use to try to help you push through the grind and sort of the idea of like, I got to stay inspired, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things. One, I would be remiss not to mention that I see a therapist and have been for 5 years, you know, and I feel fortunate. I wish that therapy was more affordable. I wish that health insurance would cover it. Exactly. Because I feel fortunate to be able to afford that, because it has been very important in my future and mental state and keeping me balanced and having somebody to talk to.
Amazing.
But also travel and eating out. That is where I get all my inspiration.
Your energy. Yeah. Your recharge, right?
Exactly. It's anytime I travel for work, I'm always mapping out where I'm going to eat. And just when you have that bite of something, you know, that blows my mind, I like jot it down because I have to, you know, remember and recall.
Start reverse engineering it.
Oh yes, absolutely. And I'm like, okay, what was that? That was a celery salad, and there was like miso and anchovies or whatever. I'm like, I'm gonna remake something like this, or take it as a kickoff for the next thing I work on. I mean, that's where you pull your inspiration from. So,
favorite places to travel, Katie?
Oh, I mean, New York, I love, there's nothing like New York. I feel like my max New York is maybe 4 days.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
It's a lot. There's so much to do and so much stimulation, but it's one of my absolute favorite places. And Spain, I mean, of course.
Sure.
So
my daughter's heading to New York City next week to see the Cabaret with Eddie Redmayne. She's extraordinarily excited. And I love the old Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan movie where he says, there's nothing like New York in the fall. It makes me want to buy school supplies.
Yes.
You know, you just feel like, you know, that way. But I'm with you. New York is like 3-4 days. Makes a lot of sense. I've had the benefit of traveling to Barcelona twice, and there's nothing like it, to your point, right? There's just nothing like it. Yeah.
Spain is so special.
Yeah, Katie, we're like halfway through the year. I can't believe it, right? Here we are. We're like barreling down on August. How are you feeling about, you know, the goals that you set for yourself? Maybe you don't set your goals yearly. I don't know. So maybe we could talk a little bit about how you set goals for yourself. But how are you feeling right now about where, you know, we are barreling into August, and pretty soon it'll be Happy New Year, and oh my gosh, right?
I mean, I feel good. We rolled out a new kind of goal setting process with our new CEO, which has been just new. We're mapping different KPIs and looking at different things, which feels good. We're falling short in some areas and we're exceeding in other areas. For me personally, which is good because there's like a learning as we figure this out, and next year we'll get even better at it. for me personally, the transition as a founder who has recently hired a CEO is finding that balance of letting go, you know, and trusting and giving, like, you know, the ability for that person to run operations and head up the goal setting, and also knowing when, where my space is and where I'm most needed and most important on voice, vision, brand, like culture, all that stuff that we have created that's gold, you know, that we need to continue to come through and shine. So I've just been figuring that out, as well as diving into this cookbook project, which projects like that are a whole different thing, because it's not like, I mean, as a chef, when you're in the restaurant, you are constantly dealing with the ticket printer, right?
Whatever, or whatever crisis is coming at you, right?
Exactly. And you just manage it, and you see it before it happens. But working on a project that's got like a year lead time that you have to get ahead on, or else you'll get too far behind, requires a whole new level of discipline that I am learning. So.
Sure. And the prioritization of, you've got to put that exact time aside for that, right?
Exactly. It's also super rewarding though, because it gets me into the creative mindset again. And as we've grown, it is true that we've had to put CDCs in charge of our restaurants and general managers. And on top of that, you know, my business partner, Felix, who's running operations with our CEO. So I've been less and less like directly involved in the day-to-day. And that's just part of growth.
The journey.
So I'm getting my creative, I'm loving being able to get my creative juices flowing in the home space, working on a cookbook, because I fell in love with cooking at home, you know, really, with my mom and my apartment in Paris. And so going back to that, and now I'm excited because that allows us for the future to kind of bridge this gap between the things that we do in our restaurants and Spain food culture into homes in the US.
As a continuation of what you are doing from a sustainability standpoint, Katie, you know, you talk a little bit about again, you know, the work that you do to sustain yourself. Where are you offering, you know, sustainability to your folks? You talked about culture for a second, but where does that come in, and what you and your restaurant group do to kind of really create a culture where your folks can thrive?
I mean, that is super important to us. And I think we've been working on that since we first opened the doors. And really, one of the things that we've done is to try to push on the benefits side of things and look at the care of our employees holistically, and offering things that a lot of independent restaurants haven't yet been able. It's a hard business. It can be hard to offer similar things to other types of businesses. This is also why we are growing into other businesses. And it's not just, you know, at home direct to consumer. We're also building out a wholesale line of charcuterie and food products so that we can wholesale things as well. Because if we layer on other business models with different gross profit margins and different bottom line, we can better take care of everybody in our team. And so, you know, we've been really proud to, you know, build up a really nice, like, sick time, PTO, health insurance, 401k that's matched, and, you know, all these things, and trying to educate our employee base, who a lot of them are young and are learning these things. Restaurants are a lot of people's first jobs. And so you're teaching them how health insurance works, how an HSA works, how a 401k works, and why they should contribute it, how they're leaving money on the table if they're not, like all of those things that we're trying to educate our team so that they feel more taken care of and are, you know, more holistically taken care of. And then the other things that we do that are really important is listening to their schedule needs. I think that's really important. People have different needs in life, and operating lunch, having restaurants that have shifts during the day and at night can allow some flexibility.
People can work around their schedules, right. Not everybody's available between the dinner hours, right? For example.
Exactly.
Yeah. I have a special admiration, I will say, for entrepreneurs like yourself that are creative entrepreneurs, the creatives, right? So a lot of women that have been on this show are, creating maybe products that they're going to sell. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, at the end of the day, what you're creating is a product, right?
Yeah.
And I believe all entrepreneurs are creative as a result of what they do. But when you are an entrepreneur in more of the art, fashion, restaurant sort of creative world that you're in, I believe there's special challenges that are associated with that. I'd love your take on that, Katie. And then maybe lastly, I would love, the person who walks up to you and says, I think I want to do what you do, Katie. What do you say to that person?
I mean, those are great questions. I think the challenges being first on the creative side, and the fact that as founders, neither my business partner nor I have a background in business. So in the beginning, with years, I mean, we were making decisions from the heart, right? Yeah. Which are important and an important part of our culture build. However, there comes a moment where you really need to balance that with some safeguards for financial safeguards, because if you're just, if you're making decisions off of what feels right, which oftentimes in the beginning, that's what we were doing.
Right.
Your blind spot is how it impacts, your P&L and your cash flow. And that is something that we've been learning over the years that I think is challenging, is a challenge when your first motivation is that creativity, and creating the experience and not necessarily thinking about what's driving the bottom line. So that is something that we've been learning, and it's been great. And hiring a CEO helps for sure. And then the other piece of that, to answer your second question, what do I say when people say they want to do what I do?
What I do to run away.
I know. I think that's a hard question, because I feel very fortunate to have gotten here, and I do think though that when they say that, the truth is creating, owning, and operating your own business is what I deduce it down to. It doesn't have to be what I'm doing, right?
Right,
but
in your space.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be my space, but I do think that is, if you have the ability and the time, particularly in the early years, to put in the hours, and you have the drive for that, and that's what you want in the end, it's amazing, because you created this thing that is only exists because of you and your thoughts and feelings and excitement about the experience. And there's something super unique about that. And you've now put something into the world that can continue to grow and have a life of its own. And then there's a moment where you move into more of safeguarding and protecting the vision and the experience and the voice, the brand while it's growing. But it starts to build kind of a life of its own. And that is cool.
That's going to feel pretty amazing to see that happen.
It does.
Yeah. Chef Katie Button, thank you so much. You were an absolute delight. Thank you for being here and for telling us your story and walking us through the very, nonlinear path that you've taken, but so common with so many of the entrepreneurs we speak with. Best of luck with your book. Can't wait to see that come over onto our shelves. And best of luck with everything you're doing within your organization. And thanks again.
Thank you, Richard. This has been wonderful.
Talk to you soon.